just a couple of punks, all trying to get by, just a couple of teens, all trying to survive. Live to the max, cause you don't live it twice. Couple green thumbs, all high as a kite.
Welcome back to another episode of Life to the Max. I'm your host with the most, Max Gross, and today I have Chris Blair, which is my friend Nick's father, and I'm super excited to talk to him. Chris Blair is no stranger when it comes to the healthcare system. He is you're a hospital administrator.
That's correct.
You're a
yeah.
hospital administrator, and he's done a lot of other things as well. So I'm super excited to get to know you, man.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Too good to talk to you.
Yeah. You probably heard a lot about me because of Nick, right?
Yeah.
So let's just dive right into this. You ready?
Let's get it.
Okay. All right. So where did you grow up?
I grew up in Indiana, north central Indiana, a little small town called Cicero.
Another small town person. Yeah. Another.
Yeah.
Because how was that? Did you enjoy it?
I would recommend it to anybody. There's just something about a small town.
USA.
Yep.
It was amazing.
Yep.
Yeah. So when you were growing up in Indiana, what were some of the hobbies that you enjoyed?
Sports. We grew up in a block with there were 6 of us, all in this within 2 or 3 years of each other, and so whatever season it was, whether it's basketball, baseball, or football, we were outside doing it, and so it was sports.
Yep. That sounds like my childhood.
Yep.
I love it. What sport was your favorite?
Being from Indiana, basketball.
Basketball.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, Hoosiers.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I understand. So, when you were growing up into like your adolescence, how was that like going into high school and stuff?
High school was great. Again, my graduating class had 160 people, so we grew up with each other. We knew each other, and then you had your subgroups of friends, but depending on what you did, and but everybody knew everybody. It was just this easy transition from elementary to junior high to high school. It just happened. It was organic, and you just brought along the same people that were with you the whole journey.
You guys are all on the stage, like putting your cap and gowns on the tassel on the different side. Then
That's
all of
it.
a sudden it's done.
That's it.
And they throw you into the world.
They cast you into the world.
Yeah.
That's right.
So what did you start doing first when you got casted into the world?
Struggling. That was my first response. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I graduated when I was 17, which in retrospect, that's too young. I mean, 17-year-olds, most 17-year-olds have a hard time picking out what clothes to wear, in the morning to go to school. And so I thought natural course was just go to college. And I found out very quickly, I did not have the attention span for it. And so I just tried to find a job that I felt like would give me some momentum in life, and it didn't work out. It was dead end after dead end after dead end.
Yeah. What year was this?
I graduated in 1989.
1989.
Yeah.
So that's when the Soviet Union fell.
That's right. That's when the wall came down.
That's when the wall came down.
That's right.
Were people like partying like around here as well?
I don't remember it happening in 1989. You have to understand in 89, the internet wasn't a thing. And so the news broadcasts, it was just different than what it is today. And so I don't remember it really taking place. I know it did. It just wasn't like a big thing. Like
here,
like stories.
It wasn't a big thing here.
Right. It was a huge thing there, but not here. Right.
Yeah. So you got cast out of the world. You didn't know what to do. What was the first job you landed?
I was cutting grass for a teacher. She had a little small business in the summer, and she would mow apartment complexes. And actually, her daughter's my girlfriend at the time, and so I started doing that. And then of course summer ends, and I worked at a pizza place for a while, which is a good experience, but just really nothing that stuck.
What propelled you to get your bearings?
I woke up. This is no joke. I woke up one morning and thought, if I don't make a profound choice in what happens next, I'm going to wake up every morning in the same place, doing the same thing. And I could feel myself getting caught in this rut. And, they say a rut over time becomes a grave. And so I woke up that morning and made a choice that I've got to do something profound. And I did.
What was that?
I called the Navy recruiter and I said, I need to join the Navy today. How do we do this?
Really? Just go to maps, all that, ready to go?
Well, it didn't happen quite that fast, but that was the motivation that, like, let's do it before I change my mind.
Why'd you choose the Navy?
My uncle had served in the military. I had a buddy that was on delayed entry in the Navy. And so I thought,
I feel very triggered right now, Chris.
No.
I was an Army man myself, so I'm just messing with you.
Yeah, if I didn't know that you're in the Army, I probably would have had a different answer. But out of respect for your service, I withheld the jokes.
No, we were just talking about, we're history buffs. The Navy were badass in World War II. It was crazy. The Battle of Midway, the Battle of the Pacific, and also helping Germany, helping Britain with the Atlantic. You know, there's just I used to be like, oh, the Navy, but then when I see these old timers, back then, I was like, wow. The Navy, dude, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really cool, man. So when you went to the Navy, what job were you looking for?
So when I joined, this was in 1990, September of 1990, which is when the Persian Gulf started escalating. And so, of course, the original Top Gun had just come out. And so I went to the recruiter saying, I want to fly jets, which me and about 40,000 other people did the same thing.
Really?
And I said, so I want to fly jets. What do I need to do?
Ace.
Yeah. And of course, as a great recruiter, as they always do, they give you impeccable advice. They just need you to get to boot camp. So I actually signed up as a aviation electrician. That was my initial job that I was going to be doing, but that changed. As I got closer I was on delayed entry, and it was like 5 months. And about 2 months into it, I'm like, this is not going to work. I can't wait this out. So I went back and said, what do I need to do to move quicker? And they had this program. It was what the heck? It was kind of this where you go in as an undesignated recruit, and you get out of boot camp and you go through 4 weeks of training, and then you go out to the fleet. And then you figure out what you want to do in the Navy. And then they bring you back and take you to school and do that. I'm like, fine, I don't care. Just get me out of this town. I just need to go.
Why did you want to get out so bad?
Because I was going nowhere. I was going nowhere with life. And I didn't see how staying in that town, not that the town was bad. There was nothing that my great friends, the town was bad. It was just, there was nothing there personally I could see that would play out and have any profound or positive
just
impact.
Just spread your wings and fly, man.
That's right. Tired of the same old scenery. Yep.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay. So they excel you to this different program.
Yep.
What job was that?
So it was I went to boot camp under a non-designated rate. Now this was in January of 91. And I got there on the 10th of January. On the 11th, Congress declared war, and the Persian Gulf kicked off.
Desert
Desert Shield. Yep.
Okay.
And so, or Desert Storm, then Desert Shield, one of the two. I'm not sure which one was first.
Me neither, man.
Yeah, but like same thing, right?
Yeah.
So
Schwarzkopf.
yeah. So when that happened, there was this big push for corpsman, Hospital Corpsman in the Navy, and so our company commander said, "We could, if you're interested, you can reclass. We got to reclass now, and then you can reclass and you can go to Corps school after boot camp." And my stepdad was a firefighter, and I grew up in the fire department. And I'm like, "What's a corpsman do?" He explained it. It sounded like an EMT. I said, "Let me go do that." And so I got reclassified to go to hospital Corps school. So after boot camp, I went to Corps school.
Let's talk about boot camp. What was boot camp like in 1990 in the Navy?
So shortly before then, they changed a lot of things. Couldn't smoke.
Bastards.
Couldn't smoke at boot camp. The company commanders couldn't lay hands on you.
Bastards.
Yeah, right. I'm telling you, that, in my opinion, that's when the military started getting soft.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
When you couldn't light up a Marlboro Light and you didn't have to run the risk of getting whacked in the head from your company commander. Boot camp was it's exactly what I needed. It provided structure, guidance, and discipline, but also promise for there was something after this that I was going to do. And so it just really, I reframed my mentality of how life's going to play out.
So in the Army, we would go through like phases, like red phase, red phase, white phase, blue phase, and red phases. They're in your face like all the time. Like you are not alone. Like they're screaming in your face and they're breaking you down. You know what I mean? And I understand why they do that now, because you come out a different person when you leave boot camp. You really do. Like, and you're like, wow, I didn't realize how like privileged I was after boot camp, you know. Well, before boot camp, I didn't realize that, like, oh, a candy bar. Like, dude, they were selling candy bars at my freaking boot camp for $50 a candy bar, bro, because it was contraband. And then I was like, I'm not having a candy bar, bro. And $50. I mean, no, but people were buying. So, like, so when you went to boot camp, you explained that it helped you build a foundation. Basically, was it as hard as you thought it was going to be?
No. And I think in retrospect it was hard, but I also understood it was necessary. And so when you realize this evolution is necessary, I think the magnitude of how hard it is gets diminished, which is how you're able to get through things. If I focused every day on how hard boot camp was, I would have been miserable and I probably would have not stuck around.
Yeah. Well, boot camp was miserable for me for the first 3 weeks. Like, it was just absolutely miserable. But then, like, they just like started saying, like, okay, hey, you can read the Ranger Handbook or you can read this, and then like they start leaving you alone, but they still fuck you up. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
Yep.
Like, it's not like you're off the hook. Like,
right.
You're not off the hook until you leave for graduation, man.
That's right.
Yeah. So, after the boot camp, you go for your training to be a corpsman, right?
Yep.
Like, do you guys call it AIT?
It's A school. A school.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, I went to San Diego for that. So boot camp in San Diego, Corps school in San Diego, and that was again the level of training that you get. So Army medics it's a little different for corpsmen than Army medics. You know, Army. And I know this because when I worked in Launchstoel, I worked, shoulder to shoulder with the Army. You're a soldier first and foremost, and then whatever you're trained to do, that's what you do second. In the military, in the Navy, it's different. As a corpsman, your primary role is to take care of people, and so we abide by rules like the Geneva Convention. And so, as a corpsman, I can only carry a 9mm. I was considered a non-combatant, and as corpsmen, our job was to take care of Marines because we were the medical for the Marines. And so corpsmen would go forward with Marines because nurses and doctors and PAs were too expensive, and corpsmen were considered expendable. So they would go forward with the Marines. And so if you imagine what that training requires, understanding that you're going to be the medical provider for a group of Marines, meaning if they have a sucking chest wound, you got to know how to put a chest tube in quickly.
Yeah.
So we had to learn all of these things in 12 weeks of core school, and it's all geared around combat readiness as a corpsman.
Yeah. Like I had to do something similar with combat lifesaver training. It was only for like 6 weeks, but I had to learn like how to improvise, use an MRE bag, like cut it to seal a wound or something, or to check for exit wound in the back, because you never know, like if there's an exit wound, he's bleeding out in the back and stuff. So like, and of course the tourniquet is number one. You probably learned that like the first day, right? Tourniquet.
Pretty early on in the training. Yeah. Bleeding is bad. Stop.
Bleeding is bad. Yeah. So you wait. So first of all, let's see. So you went from Indiana. Where was boot camp?
San Diego.
Okay. So how was like the culture shock, like being in a big city like San Diego?
Well, I mean, for boot camp, we didn't see the big city until Liberty Weekend. But you know, you're sheltered in boot camp.
I know that. I meant like when you went to
core school.
Core school, yeah.
So that was different. I had never encountered homeless people,
really,
in Indiana, and I never encountered people that knew when you got paid. And when the first time I walked downtown San Diego on payday weekend, everybody knew I had been paid, and it was almost like this army of panhandlers. I mean, it was an awkward feeling for me because I'd never experienced. And, you know, I wanted to.
This was in 1990.
91.
91. There was homeless people there?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
In San Diego. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's. So it hasn't changed. I mean, if anything, it got worse. That's horrible. Like, when I was in the military, same thing. They knew when you got paid, and they called them tag chasers for dog tags. So we weren't allowed to wear our dog tags, like, because like they want to like hug us, and like if they feel dog tags, like, okay, he's a soldier.
Yeah. Well, like they couldn't tell by your haircut, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like yes. I'm like thinking like, okay, well, I have a high and tight, right? Man. Like with like
that's not in
dog
style.
Tags, big dog tags. So how long was corpsman school?
Core school was, I think, 14 weeks, I believe.
14 weeks.
Yeah.
And then they just threw you out into the world. Where did you go?
I went to Great Lakes. I was assigned to the hospital in Great Lakes. Initially, just on a general duty corpsman on a medical floor, learning how to be a corpsman.
What was that experience like?
It was a good experience, but you know, if you remember back when I reclassified as a corpsman, in my mind, I thought I was going to be like an EMT.
Right.
And being on a med surge floor is nothing like being an EMT.
Yeah.
It's like being a patient care tech or a nurse CNA.
Yeah.
So a little disappointed, but also I knew there was a ton I didn't know. And so I just optimized that time to learn as much as I could. And I also learned in boot camp, if you're a high performer, you get recognized for that and you get special privileges. And so I thought, well, I'm just going to continue to be a high performer and maybe something good will come of it. And so
you're a sponge. You're a sponge, basically.
Anything I could get. Look, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have Chat GPT. They were called books. We had to read them. And so I was reading the PDR, physician desk reference, but now you have an app on your phone. You can think of the med and it'll pop up on your phone.
Yeah.
So I had to read. And I just, anything I could get my hands on, I was just in it. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. And then, how long were you in the rear? Like, would you say, like, basically that's like the rear?
Yep.
Like, you were in
Stateside.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
stateside. So, how long were you stationed there?
I was there for 2 years. Yeah, 2 years. And then I eventually moved down to the emergency room, which is really where I wanted to be. And then ultimately on the ambulance crew. So I kind of worked my way into the best job for corpsman, which was running on the ambulances.
Why did you want to be in that room?
Well, it's because again, it goes back to the reason I wanted to be a corpsman because it sounded to me like I would be an EMT, and I could associate with an EMT because my stepfather was a firefighter, and I was around the fire department growing up, and I saw what EMTs did, and I looked up to the EMTs because they're the ones going out dragging people out of cars and saving people's lives.
What was like a real life moment where you're like, wow, like I'm actually like where I want to be?
Yeah.
When was that?
That was I think I'd been in the Navy a year and a half. I had just gotten on the ambulance squad. Now you have to understand, you're going to calls. You know the military is a very young demographic, right?
Yes.
So you're not dealing with heart attacks, things like this, because it's just a young demographic. And so a lot of the things we picked up were sprained ankles, whatever. But I remember distinctly a call to boot camp. We had to drive over to boot camp, and it was, we got a call for, well, I'm trying to be politically correct in how
Friendly fire?
No, it was the confusion. So this recruit was confused, and it was very vague. So we get over there, and we walk onto the floor, and there's a recruit, and he's covered in his own feces, and which isn't normal, by the way, even for boot camp, right?
Well, I mean,
so
yeah, I would agree with you. Actually, I had to think about it. I was with 55 men.
Yeah, that's not normal. Yeah, even though the food tends to help with that. But so we get there, and this is something that we're not accustomed, because you could tell this guy's countenance there was something off. And so he's confused. We finally get him in the ambulance away, because the other recruits and even the company commanders they thought he was faking it. And we just need to get him out of the environment and figure out what the heck was going on. So we get him out of the ambulance, and his pupils are unequal. One of them's not reactive. And I'm like, something bad's going on. And despite how much I had read up to that point in 18 months, I didn't know what the heck was going on. And it was scary, because I just knew something bad's happening here. And so I'm like, well, let's just put oxygen on him and get him to the hospital and figure it out. And so it turns out he had a brain bleed. And we were able to, and then once we diagnosed it at the Naval Hospital, we urgently transported him to a hospital downtown Chicago, and he was able to get life-saving care he needed. We didn't have that available at the hospital, Naval Hospital.
Yeah.
So we had the life-saving treatment that he needed, and we transported him down there. I just remember driving on the way back from transporting him to Chicago, me and my partner, the conversation like, what in the heck? Like, how do we got to level up. I mean, we didn't do anything wrong, but what could we have done different? Because
while quicker.
Yes. Like while we don't see that here, the expectation at some point when we're at a duty station or with the Marines is you got to figure that out. You don't have time to hem-haw around. And so that was a wake-up call that this is a real job that I have here.
Yeah, especially if like you're in a battlefield and like you need to like perform care on this, like a Marine, like you gotta like be on your toes, ready to go, know what you're doing.
That's right.
Yeah, so that probably was like the humble dude. You're like, okay, yeah, like we're gonna, I'm like lock and load in, I'm gonna dial in.
That's it.
So you stay at Gray's Lake for not the Great Lakes. I'm sorry, you stay at the Great Lakes for a couple of years, and then when did you go out of the country?
So the next rotation that you do is stateside, and then you do sea duty, which is either Marines, overseas, hospital or a ship. And the war had ended, and they had an abundance of corpsmen, so there were no billets to go with the Marines. And I wasn't really keen on going on a ship, so I got orders to go to Guam, to the Naval Hospital in Guam, which is the antithesis of Great Lakes, Illinois. Complete opposite.
It's an island.
It's a you could call it an island. It's a pin drop on a map, is what it is. But it's the most beautiful, one of the most beautiful places on earth.
Really?
Yeah, no question about it.
So when you got the orders to go to Guam, were you pretty stoked?
I pick them. I took them because back then you had to call the detailer. And say, hey, here's my rotation date. What do you got open? And he would say, here's what's open. And I said, well, let me do Guam. So that was it. So it was my choice.
And did you know where Guam was?
Kind of. I knew. Yeah, I mean, I knew kind of where it was. It's in the middle of the
Google Maps or anything.
No, those did not exist. It was an atlas map that you folded out. But I knew it was in the Pacific Ocean somewhere.
I thought it was in the Caribbean. Wow, I'm stupid.
No, it's west.
I really got to pull out Google Maps and look where it is.
Yeah. If you scan your eyes from Hawaii west and squint before you hit Japan, you'll see Guam. Guam was pivotal during World War II.
Wow.
Pivotal. Yeah.
I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
Well, because we were island hopping in World War II, like, so it was that was a difficult war, because that was a difficult theater of the war, because like we're trying to like get to Japan. There's so many islands in the way, and they got the Philippines and all that sort of stuff. And then Guam was, we probably would put an airfield there, right?
Yep. There is. Yep. We liberated Guam. We liberated Guam and then took control of the island because it was occupied by the Japanese.
You're teaching me something, man.
They took Guam on the same day they bombed Pearl Harbor. It was coordinated.
Wow.
Yeah. It was like there was a very short span of time that it took place, and then not enough time back then to convey the message that Guam had been taken over in order to react to it, and then Pearl Harbor happened.
That's thank you for teaching me that, man. usually I'm smart when it comes to history, but I've been fumbling the bag lately.
Yeah.
But, so you like you said, you got to get the hell out of Indiana, then you go to Guam.
Uh-huh.
What was that like?
Guam is incredible. Golf, beach, all the time. I mean, if you want to go to the beach, it wasn't a big plan because at its widest point, it's about 5 miles wide. So every road you're on, you can see the ocean for the most.
Do you remember your first day there?
I do. I'm trying to figure out what part of the story I want to tell you.
Tell me all.
So we get there to check in. We get there in the middle of the night to check in. It's been 24 hours we've been flying. We flew to Tokyo direct 18 hours on a smoking flight.
Yeah,
which was wonderful. So we get there in the middle of the night to Guam, and we check in at the quarterdeck, and they don't have any record. And as a buddy and I went together.
Oh.
And they don't have a record of us coming. Like, oh, we didn't know you guys were going to be here. Like, really? Of course, again, no internet. You know, that happens. So they didn't have the barracks room for us. So they're like, well, we're going to ship you over to the Naval Air Station. There's barracks over there. What they meant by that, there's a storage building you can stay in. And so that was our introduction. But I was a kid, man. I'm like, we wake up the next morning, like, we're going to the beach. Now, I'm from Indiana, and you can tell my complexion, not real dark complected.
Yeah.
So we go to the beach, and I'm not going to use sunscreen because I gotta get my bronze on, man. I got to look good.
Yeah.
And I wake up in the middle of the night, that next night, itching. Like my entire body was itching. I'm like, what the heck? I get in the shower. Next morning I wake up, terrible. No rash, just itching. So I go to the hospital, and I run into one of a nurse, and I said, what the heck's going on? I wasn't really sunburnt bad at all.
Yeah.
And she said, how long have you been here? I said, about 36 hours. She goes, did you go to the beach? Yeah. She goes, you got sun poisoning. It happens to everybody when they first get here. Take some Benadryl, you'll be fine. So I took Benadryl and I was fine. And I never had an issue after that. But it was the most miserable 12 hours of my life.
I can imagine. I think when I was at boot camp, I got sick from all the like shots they gave me or whatever. Like I had to do a peanut butter shot, which is right in the right ass cheek. So then I was like, and then like after that, the night after, I'm just sick. But they're like, no, you're getting up. You're still doing this. Like and I'm just like, fuck, man, God. So I totally can understand that. What was it like when you got to your first station in Guam?
So I worked in the ICU now, which was I went from this hospital in Great Lakes, which was really just taking care of the young population, to Guam, which even at the time, even if they were a federal employee, so we had locals that were federal employees that could access health care at the hospital. And so it was a completely different demographic. And there were some sick people there. And so I was working in the ICU, and now I'm exposed to sick people, lots of trauma. And I was able to hone a lot of skills during that tour there.
A lot of trauma, like from what?
So the base of the roads, when they mix the roads up, you think about, here we use gravel and these things to form the asphalt. Well, there's no gravel. So they ground up the coral. But when it rains, the oil from the coral rises to the top and makes the road slick. And because they have typhoons, they don't have wooden telephone poles. They have these concrete poles that are about 10 foot in diameter. So people have a tendency to slide off the road and smash into these things on a regular basis. And then it's an island. So you have people that are getting sucked on riptides out, getting caught underneath the reef. It's a heavy populated jungle. So people go on boonie stomps and fall off cliffs, and lots of those types of injuries. And then there's the gunshots and the stabbings and things like that.
So were you helping civilians?
Both. Yeah. Both.
So you're helping civilians and soldiers.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
I didn't know that. I thought like at Fort Campbell, like we only take care of the military.
Yeah. So with Guam being a territory, there was a civilian hospital on the island, but there was an agreement that if there was an injury in the community and an ambulance responded, that we would bring whomever needed care to the closest hospital, which could have been the Naval Hospital. We would stabilize and care for them. And then at some point, if they were stable enough to transport, we would transport them over to the local hospital. But, it's just one of those humanitarian agreements we had on a small island,
Again, what is the craziest thing you've seen in Guam then, besides the guy at boot camp?
So Guam, I would say, I saw a guy. So when we would have traumas that would come in, if we were slower in the ICU, we would always all go down to the ER and help out for traumas. And so there was a guy that was chopping down mangoes. I think it was mangoes with a machete.
Okay.
And he whacked a power line. And so entrance came through the machete and came out his side, and it looked like it didn't look real. Like the exit wound was his entire left side of his body. So you went down there and where do you put the chest tube? It's
what?
Yeah, it was pretty. It just gave you true appreciation for the power of electricity. Yeah, there was no.
Yeah.
That was probably one of the most interesting things I saw in Guam for sure.
Besides your wife, right?
I met her. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I met my wife. Yeah, she was. She came. She came to Guam. She had orders she was a nurse corps officer, and she got there probably 6 months before I was supposed to leave, and she was assigned to the ICU. And once she laid eyes on me, it was all over, man. I mean, Beth's all, I mean, you can see.
You guys
Look
just,
at me. I mean,
you guys just have like arms and like helping patients and stuff. You got blood all over you. You lock eyes.
just like the movies, baby. Look, man, I outkicked my coverage. I 29 years later, I'm thinking, Jiminy Christmas, that poor thing. She had no idea what she was getting into.
It's really not. I just interviewed her like literally like an hour ago, and she has an amazing story. So like I can't wait for you to be able to hear that.
Yeah.
Well, you probably have heard it, obviously. For her to tell it, it's an amazing story. But let's stick to your guys' story. So you met your significant other, then wife, and how did that progress?
It was challenging. You know, you get it as a military member. Officers and enlisted aren't supposed to fraternize. So when you work, we were a small unit.
But dude, you're a stud.
Well, unfortunately, there's nothing written in the Uniform Code of Justice that
say if you're a stud
that disqualifies you from the rules because you're a stud. I mean, that would have created a national problem, I think. Now, what was the question?
I was like, how did it progress?
Oh, yeah, how did it progress? You threw me off, man. So we worked in the ICU together, and it was a small group of people, and you know, those groups of people would do life together outside of work.
Yeah,
and we were at events together and within the department, and we worked a lot together, and something just clicked. I mean, and so here's the thing: you get this, and you can appreciate this as a military member. Maybe it's changed, but I can only report what I know from. This is probably 1994.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of good-looking women in the military. Would you agree or disagree?
Really
That's why there's two scales, right? You know about the two scales? There's the military and the civilian scale. It's like, what would she be if she was a civilian? She was a 10, like not even military. In my eyes, like, where in the world did this woman come from? Like, you just never experienced anything like that. Being in the military, you just see these. Did
you salute to her before you got down on one knee?
There was some saluting that took place appropriately. Yeah, I mean it's standard, and it just happened. You know, like we had a lot of the same interests, even though she was from Texas and I was from Indiana. Yeah. We had a lot of this. We had the same humor.
Small towns.
I'm telling you, and I would tell you, it was the Three Amigos that did it. It was the Three Amigos. We watched the Three Amigos together, and that was like it.
You watched the Three Amigos together?
Yeah.
And that's what did it?
That's kind of what lit the fire. Like we were like, could tell that there was an attraction, and then I'm just like, look, let's go, let's watch it. Let me tell you the story about the Three Amigos. Okay. This is if you've never seen it, you got to watch it. It's a classic.
I've seen the Three. Wait, okay. No, actually, no. I'm thinking of those guys that hurt each other.
No, that's not the Three Amigos. That's the opposite of the Three Amigos. Three Amigos had Steve Martin, Chevy Chase, and Martin Short. So anyway, we were working days, and you know how there's that you really like somebody, but there's that awkwardness. Like, man, when do you put it out there? And so we were talking, and she goes, when are we going to watch the Three Amigos together? And I said, well, let's watch it tonight. She's like, okay, we'll watch it tonight. I'll come over after work. We'll watch Three Amigos. I'm like, perfect. Yeah. What she didn't know was I didn't have a VCR, nor did I own the movie. So I got off early. I had to go to my buddy's house to borrow a VCR, and then I had to go down to the video store and buy the Three Amigos.
They didn't have streaming?
This was in 1994.
I know.
No, they did. They didn't have streaming at all. That would have made it easy.
It made it way easier. But that's cool. You put your mind to it. You're like, okay, I gotta do this. Maybe she didn't know that. Did you tell her?
I may have told her after the fact, but she didn't need to know that. It wasn't any of her business.
Yeah, she just needed to know that I had a VCR and the Three Amigos.
That's it.
And for everybody listening out there, all those kids that want to get a girl, watch Three Amigos.
That's it.
Let's get your Riz up.
That's it.
Okay.
We've had, and our kids have, they've watched it, and so we've got all these Three Amigo lines that we have now become these family jokes and family sayings.
Yeah.
So it's been kind of cool how we've just taken that moment in our lives, how we met, and we've just stretched that across 30 years and included the kids and they've been a part of that.
Yeah. And your life's been crazy from what I've heard. And I kind of want to accelerate a little bit, fast forward kind of it. So you marry Michelle, right? And when did Nick come into the picture?
So Nick was before we got married.
Okay.
Yeah, Nick was before Michelle and I got married.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, he's the reason why you're here because you're the reason why he's here. Actually, I'm thinking the wrong way. But
something like that. I don't
so,
know.
how long were you in the Navy until you got out?
Just shy of 5 years. Yeah.
5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
And then where did you go next?
So Michelle was still in, and Nick was born. And so Michelle took orders to Great Lakes so we could be close to Nick.
That's exactly what she said to me on my podcast.
Oh, good. We got our story straight.
Yeah. No, that's beautiful that she did that. Nick's an awesome person. I was super excited that he said you were down to do this. And I have to ask you a question. So it's like, Nick told me that you were devastated when he quit baseball.
Devastated?
Yeah.
Here's the good news. I was in Germany when he called me. It's probably good for him. But it was devastating. But of course, looking back, I mean,
he was so talented. Right?
The kid could do anything he wanted to do. It didn't matter. And when I first saw him riding his bike, because that's what he told me he wanted to do. He's like, "I want to ride my bike." I'm like, "You can ride your bike in the off season, okay? They're gonna pay for your college. You got to throw a ball and swing a piece of wood. What's the problem? I want to ride my bike. I want to ride my bike. Ride it in the off season. No, I want to do BMX." I knew I wasn't going to talk him out of it because he was a lot like me.
He is like you from what we're talking. Like you get bored pretty easily. That's why you wanted to be on the ER floor.
Yep. So, yeah, but I wouldn't change it. I mean, he figured it out.
Yeah, he wanted me to tell you that there was this one time where you're like, you're not gonna make any money out of this. You're not gonna do anything with this. And then he's making money at the circus, and you're like, well, God damn it, this guy freaking got me. Like,
I know exactly what he's talking about, man. So when he called me, I'm like, you're not gonna make a nickel riding your bike. You're not gonna do it. And then fast forward to the very first time we went to watch him perform afterwards. I'm like, do you remember when I said that? And he goes, yeah. I'm like, yeah, I was wrong. You proved me wrong. And I think that was like the confirmation, like, yeah, that he's definitely a lot like me. Yeah. I should stop trying to swim upstream and fight it. Just let him go, you know?
Yeah, no, he's super into we're into the same things too, like books and stuff like that. So like but yeah, just a little short clip I wanted to do with Nick. We also had him on the podcast like a year ago. It was amazing. He's a good friend of mine, and he's growing a family, and I'm super proud of him and all that. You're probably proud of him as well. Yeah,
no question about it.
Yeah, so let's get back to you though. So you guys moved to Great Lakes again, right? So and then What happened after that?
So Michelle got out of the Navy, got off of active duty, and I graduated from nursing school. And so
you went to nursing school?
I went to nursing school,
okay.
yeah. Yeah, I went to nursing school once we got back to Illinois. And we were here for 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know if you realize this, Illinois is an expensive place to live.
Really?
Yeah. At least it was back in 1996.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So this was 2002.
Yeah.
And we, at this point, we had Nick and we had all 4 kids at this point.
Yeah.
And I had to move someplace where I could afford to take care of a family. And so Michelle being from Texas, we started looking into Texas. And so we ended up moving to Texas, to the East Texas, near Tyler. I took a job at a trauma center, a level 1 trauma center there.
Okay.
And bought a little house and started raising kids and trying to figure out life as an adult.
You stayed in Texas, right?
Yep.
Through and through.
We stayed in Texas. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. For a little while.
I said through and through, man.
Yeah.
It's like, where'd you go next?
Yeah. After Texas, we went to, trying to think, man, we went to Indiana for a brief stint. We bought restaurants. That's a whole other story. I
know the story,
yeah,
man.
Yeah.
I got it.
You got it, right?
I got the story.
So we were in Indiana for a brief amount of time, back to Texas.
Great pizza, by the way.
I would argue it's probably the best pizza that's ever existed in the United States.
The United States, okay. So
Italy has some pretty good pizza. Yeah. And then we went to Germany, and then back to Texas, and then to Arkansas.
What was Germany like?
Incredible.
Incredible.
You could travel easily. You could travel inexpensively, and you could see buildings that were older than the United States that were still functional.
Yeah.
They built things to last in Germany.
Yeah.
It was a great experience. It was.
You probably, as a history buff, went to go see all the history as well.
Yeah. I think MacArthur's buried in Luxembourg. And so he's the only American general buried in a non-American soil. You may have to look that up. If I'm wrong, just edit it. But I think it's MacArthur.
No, I'm not editing it out.
You're like, look at this jerk. He doesn't know anything to see. He's dumb. But no, I think it's MacArthur that's born in Luxembourg. So to go over and see his grave, that was impressive. And then, of course, Berlin's just littered with history. And, then you have the concentration camps and
with Auschwitz and Poland and stuff. It's some sad stuff. But let's stay on a good note, right?
Yeah, let's depart from that darkness.
Yeah. So you got an MBA, like working full time, and it was a 4.0. Is that correct?
That's what they tell me.
That's what they tell you?
Yeah. I was, it was during COVID, by the way. So I was the manager of a large inpatient unit. We were the COVID containment unit. And I had just started my MBA prior to this. And so what were my options? I could quit and wait till the dust settles, or I could suck it up and push through it. And that's what I did. I learned when I went to nursing school. Now, I was on the GI Bill. However, I consider I paid for that, right? Because I was the one that had to serve to get the benefit of the GI Bill. So that was my dime.
Absolutely.
So I learned then that I'm going to hold the instructors to a high level because I'm paying for it out of my own pocket. And number two, I'm going to be a high performer, and I'm not going to accept anything less than the top.
4.0.
And so I got a 4.0 in my MBA program.
And you were working at the same time, right?
I had a full, probably a one and a half times, because again, it was COVID. So it was about 60 hours a week.
Respect, man. That's awesome. That's really cool. I'm thinking about going back to school as well. To, just like for the knowledge, like it's just knowledge is power, and I love that. And one thing I did want to ask you is like you went from nurse to like more on like the executive part of like the hospital, and I kind of wanted to get through that, get into that because of like you're a hospital administrator, and Nick told me you were in charge of like 3 hospitals now, and I just want to see how that progressed, like from your MBA to like
Yeah.
knowing hospitals.
Yeah. Uh, so, so I was, like I said, I was the manager of this large floor. It was one of the largest floors in the hospital, and then COVID hit. Um, and in a time where nursing staffing was exceedingly challenging, I had an incredible team of nurses that were committed to taking care of people, and my job was to lead them in doing that. And there's a lot of metrics that we look at that determines how well you're performing, and all those important metrics were flying off the charts. And it's because of the team I had, and the president at the hospital at the time reached out to me and said, "What are you doing up there? I mean, how are you?" And I said, "I'm just leading a bunch of high performing, super intelligent nurses. Is all I'm doing. They're making me look good." He said, "Well, we need to get you influencing more people than just the handful of people you have up there." And so with my experience in restaurants, I have an affinity for
You have a lot of experience
entrepreneurial, entrepreneurial and operations. And when you get to that point, I had to either make a decision: do I go leadership up the nursing route, where I become the nursing executive, or do I go up the other side and on the operations side, and then I become part of the operations and strategy of the hospital? And I just was so much better suited for the operations side. And so he became my mentor and hired me into a position as a director of business development for the hospital.
What year was this?
This was in 2020. Why are you asking me dates?
Dude, because I want to see the progression, man. I'm sorry.
I don't know. I say that because I think once you're 50, you shouldn't have to give dates. So
sorry.
No, it's okay. It just takes me a second to think because I gotta see the thing in my head.
Yeah.
So 2021 is when I got promoted into the director of business development for this hospital, and here was my orientation. I reported directly to the president. I said, what's my job? What do I do? He said, you eat what you kill. Go out and get business and build relationships and just do what you do.
What does that mean?
So it's a different philosophy when you own your own business. So let's just take a step back. When I owned the pizza places,
yeah,
everything that I was responsible for, my wife, my kids, all my bills, relied on my ability to sell pepperoni pizza. And if I didn't sell pepperoni pizza, I was going to have problems. And so you have a different approach to how you do business. And there's this kill what you eat mentality. Okay. You go get it.
Yeah.
Right? You just go get it. All gas, no brakes.
Yep.
So I carried that into healthcare, the same mentality, because healthcare is competitive everywhere you go. And I carried that same mentality into the leadership side in healthcare of all gas, no brakes, eat what you kill, go get it. And we had some successes in a short amount of time in that role. I was in that role for a year, and then I was recruited to go take over a hospital in Arkansas.
Where were you for the first year? Texas.
I was in
Texas.
Yeah, all this, the COVID, the nursing manager role, everything was in Texas.
Okay.
And then I get recruited to go to Arkansas to take over a small hospital in Arkansas by the same guy. He had been recruited to take over the market in Arkansas and pulled me up to take over this hospital. And it was the same thing. That year was in 23. It was very challenging coming out of COVID. A lot of challenges for healthcare organizations. A lot of funding for COVID was pulled back. And so a lot of managing of expenses had to take place. At the same time, you still have to maintain a culture and you still have to deliver high quality care.
Of course.
So the hospital was not in bad shape, but there were some headwinds. And so we were able to get over those really quickly and kind of point that hospital in the right direction.
Can you elaborate more on that?
So when you look at a hospital's performance, there's things you look at. You look at quality. There's several quality metrics that you look at that you as a consumer expect. You expect to be delivered high quality care. You don't look for a mediocre hospital to go get your care from. So there are metrics that you can look at to tell you how well a hospital performs. One of the things that you can look at is the Center for Medicare has star ratings. The highest star rating is a 5-star, which is something like 2 or 3% of the hospitals. It's very, very elite.
Yeah.
The hospital I was in went from a 3-star to a 4-star. And it's all based on a number of different metrics, quality metrics, patient experience metrics. How safe is your hospital? And so that was one of the things we were able to do. More importantly, and this is kind of my leadership style, is what does the culture of your hospital look like, and how do you tell? How can you tell what a hospital culture looks like? Well, you do what we call employee engagement surveys. Let the employees tell us how they feel about where they work. And as a leader, that feedback is gold because it tells you what are you doing well, what are you doing mediocre, and what do you suck at? And if you don't have a team at the table to figure out how to fix where you suck, the hospital culture is going to fall apart. And there's one quote I've stood by: culture eats strategy for breakfast. And without culture, strategy isn't worth the paper it's written on. Yeah. So the culture was a little bit challenging. The engagement was a little bit challenging, but that's right up my alley. I dove in head first, started engaging the team. I started showing up, being visible, removing barriers.
Was that different for the team? Were they not used to someone?
Completely. Yeah, completely. Yeah. The guy I replaced, I don't know the guy. I never met if he walked in the room, I wouldn't know he was here.
He's right behind you.
I know. I saw the shadow, and I'm thinking, oh God, he just showed up. He was very financially focused. And when you're a leader and you're financially focused, you forget about the people that are driving the finances. And I'm the opposite. I focus on the people, understanding if I meet the needs of the team, they're going to drive the performance of the hospital. I'm not going to have to worry about finances because they're going to deliver the highest quality care. And it's going to be a place where people want to come to get their care and people want to come to deliver their care. So I had a completely opposite philosophy. And so I just dove in head first, like with the leadership team, what can I do to make your life better when you come to work? And we just started building relationships, number one in the hospital, number two in the community, because the community confidence was a little low with the hospital. So I got out in the community and got in front of people and talked about the great things we do at the hospital. And so our employee engagement, really the one line that matters is favorability. Like, how do you rate your favorability of your job right now? 1 to 5, 5 being the best, 1 being, I wish I wasn't here. And we were at 3.2 when I took over the hospital. We were at a 4.1 the last survey that we took before I moved on. And guess what? The finances corrected themselves. The performance of the hospital corrected themselves. You could walk in and there was a palpable feeling that this place is different.
That's amazing, man.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah. And then I did so good. He said, well, I want you to go to this other hospital in the system in Arkansas and do the same thing. And that was a bit challenging. It was in bad shape. It was decades of multiple CEOs coming through with different visions and then not having the longevity and then leaving.
Can you explain like a day in life, like being like first the hospital that's like, like in bad shape, like the plan that you had, and then like the reward obviously after.
Yeah. Well, again, you got to know where the fire's at, right? And so that was the first thing I needed to do was figure out what's burning down and where do we need to focus first. And you can historically look back at performance. And so I was able to look back at the employee engagements and realize this is probably the first place we need to focus is to engage the team. And it's really, healthcare is such a hard job. I don't care what. So I've been in healthcare from a patient care tech to a ward clerk to a phlebotomist to a nurse to the CEO. I've been in every role. I can tell you there's not an easy role in healthcare. I've served radiology. I've served lab. There is not an easy job in healthcare. And I think having that background and living in those roles, I have a greater understanding what people go through when they come to work every day. And I don't pass any judgment. I don't walk on a floor and take a snapshot and create a reality. You just don't do that. It's unsafe for you. You can very quickly develop confirmation bias if that's the way you carry yourself. And
you didn't want to look like an aristocrat, basically, right?
You look like an empty suit.
Yeah.
And there's nothing worse for a healthcare professional to have a leader that looks like an empty suit.
Yeah. And you just killed it. And I still don't understand. Are you in charge of the doctors and the nurses? Or are you in charge of down to the janitor?
So it depends on the role. And I say this with complete sincerity. I am not in charge of anybody, and no one works for me. I work for them, because if I don't have them, I don't have a job. And so it's my job to work for them to figure out how I can remove their barriers, get them what they need. Now, to answer your question, the answer is yes. There are roles I've been in where I've been over everybody, doctors to the janitors. There's roles where I've been over service lines. So it just depends. Currently, it's mainly service lines that I'm over.
Okay.
But I've been in roles where it's been everybody.
So, first of all, congratulations with all you've done, in the past few years, because this is recent. I thought this wasn't recent, and kudos to you, man. That's amazing that you were able to, that the people were amazing enough to make you better. Because, what I say in the military is there's no such thing as bad soldiers, it's bad leaders. And you were in the military too. So, I just got mad respect that you went for that. And, what was I gonna say? I was gonna say something. I was gonna see how you think about healthcare, being in the healthcare's job.
Yeah, healthcare is hard, and it doesn't matter where you're at in healthcare, whether you're a provider or a consumer. Healthcare is hard. There's so many moving parts and challenges to the delivery of healthcare that is not seen by the consumer. And unfortunately, it's very easy to cast a incorrect or inaccurate perception of healthcare into the general public based on an incident or an isolated incident. And that's the biggest challenge is how do you deliver care, compassionate quality care in such a way that is still profitable? People hate that. Healthcare shouldn't be profitable, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how you can't be profitable. And here's what I'll tell you, industry secret. Hospitals operate about a 3% margin. 3%. So that's small. If you're not really business minded, what does that mean? That's small.
Yeah.
It means 3% of what you've generated in revenue is considered profit. And that's the money you have to upgrade your delivery system. That's the money you have for raises. That's the money you have for CAT scans. That's the money you have for MRIs. And by the way, if you need a new CAT scan in your hospital, you might as well figure you're going to spend a couple $1,000,000 on it. So that's that 3% that you have to figure out how do you improve the delivery of care with such a small, narrow margin.
It's astonishing that you were able to like turn around all these hospitals, and obviously you said it was the people around you, but it's also you, man. It's your character. You know, you're not like all high and mighty when you walk on the floor. Like you're like, "What's up, man? Like, are you having a good day? Is everything okay?" You know, and to make these people, like, not to make them better, but to help them get better, you know, and have a better experience at work. That's the best thing. That's what I try to do for my nurses all the time, and they love it here because I try not to give them like be like pouty and upset, like, oh, like I hate my life, this, that. You know, you just gotta live life to the max. That's why we started the podcast, you know, to get a voice out. Of course, I've had my demons, like, and like the problems that I've had, but like, there's it's a crazy experience from going from like a nurse to like MBA COVID, and you jump from hospital, and you're just killing it. And I was gonna ask you something. So when I got injured, and I know you don't know a lot about insurance, but when I got injured, I was under TRICARE, obviously, and I I the recruiter told me the Army's always gonna have my back. The Army's always gonna have my back. And I got injured in a car accident. Everyone thinks I got shot. No, I got injured in a car accident. I wasn't driving. I was going to see my family for my birthday. It was 3 days after my birthday, my 20th. It was about 9 years ago, in March 24th, 2016. So I got injured, and I'm like just focusing on myself, but I'm thinking like, damn, I'm not going overseas anymore. I'm not going to be this soldier, you know. And like, I get out and I learn like all the things they tell me, like, because it was a paradox, man. Like my life was flipped upside down. Like it's like like black was white, white was black. You know, like it was so surreal. And with you being like into healthcare, like I got slapped with a $1.6 million bill, and I didn't know what to do. I was like, wow, $250,000 to stay at Rehabilitation Institute of Chicago. So I know you worked at these hospitals. Like, I was just wondering, like, do you have any like insight on that? Why, like the Army didn't have my back, why the insurance company didn't do anything? Like,
that's where I'm confused, because you should have been covered by TRICARE, and TRICARE, unless where you were at was not in network for TRICARE, it's messy. I'm telling you, we'd have to have a series of podcasts to go over insurance. Okay. So it's so messy.
yeah.
But unless TRICARE if that wasn't an in-network provider of your care, meaning, or maybe they didn't accept TRICARE. And I'll tell you, so government payers, TRICARE, Medicare, Medicaid, they pay the lowest, they reimburse the lowest to the healthcare providers, right?
Yeah.
So if they have a contract, they're going to tell the provider, here's what we're going to pay you based on the diagnosis code or the CPT code, which probably doesn't mean anything to you. But so the organization understands what the reimbursement is. And then what they do is they issue the bill to TRICARE, and TRICARE pays the bill.
Yeah.
But what I don't know is why TRICARE didn't pay your bill, unless the organization didn't accept TRICARE as your insurance, and now you become a self-pay, which sounds like what has happened.
Yeah, so like I was at the ICU and I woke up and my family's around me. The army, this guy stood at my platoon sergeant stood at my door for 48 hours until I woke up, which was like like amazing. Like I didn't know I was that like I didn't know like I meant that much to them, and when I got there, they said you're going to Walter Reed, and that's not a spinal cord injury place at all. And they're like, okay, well, maybe Atlanta. Like, but my family's like, literally the best hospital is in Chicago for spinal cord injury. Like, so my family fought tooth and nail with Department of Defense, and then they said, okay, fine, you can go to RAC. So maybe that's where they were like, yeah, like, but we're gonna be like we're not gonna tell you that we're not paying for it. It was a pretty crazy experience at like 21 to hear that I owed that much money to a hospital just because I was going to see my friends and family for my birthday,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so did TRICARE pay any of it?
They did. I'll explain more like when we get off the podcast, but I want to end this on a good note. You like I said, you jumped from hospital to hospital to hospital, and you had this mentor, this president of the hospital that keeps like bringing you with and telling you where to go and stuff. I have a mentor just like that. I always recommend this book. Everyone, it's a broken record, but I read Mastery by Robert Greene, and it explains like you find a master, you're like, okay, I want to be like that guy, and then you become an apprentice. It usually takes about 7 years, and then you like start becoming a master, and it seems like you're mastering this pretty quickly, man. Like you're understanding like it's about the people. It's not about the money. It's about the hospital. It's about the people that are coming in. They get quality care, and that's why you're getting like all these opportunities. You went to Green Bay, right? That was your next place, Green Bay.
Yeah. Well, Rhinelander. It's the Northwoods of Wisconsin.
4 hours of Green Bay. Yeah, and you're just like killing it, man. Like for everybody out there that's listening, because you probably are listening because it's a podcast, but if you have something that you want to do and you put your mind to it, freaking do it. Do it. Seriously, if this guy went through during COVID, did a job like time and a half of work, and he got his MBA. Don't be crying about going to school or trying to figure out a career. There's anything. Eat what you kill. Exactly. Eat what you kill. That's a beautiful saying, And then like I like my saying as well. I'm not gonna trump your saying. But like, there's no such thing as bad soldiers, just bad leaders.
Yeah.
So now that you're in this area and you kind of found your calling in a way, it's kind of weird. Like you went bankrupt with a pizza place, and now you're like overseeing the line of a hospital, right?
Yeah, I think that's important. That if you haven't failed at anything, it's because you haven't tried anything, right? I've failed, but I understand failure is an event, and failure is not a person. And to me, if you fail, that means you're trying. So you get up and you keep trying. Because when you stop trying, you're not going to accomplish anything. You're going to become complacent, and then the world doesn't need another complacent person. There's plenty of them out there.
Yeah.
Right?
Of course.
The beautiful thing is the bar in the world is not very high right now. I mean, really,
It really is.
it takes very little effort to rise above the median. And, you know, I got to say this, just sitting across from you, people can bitch and moan all day about their life. And then I sit across from you and hearing your story and knowing what you've gone through. And I say, my back hurts. Who gives a shit? Your back hurts? Suck it up, right? Because I sit across from you and your life was turned upside down. And this is another saying that I love. It's when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And whether you know it or not, you've done that. And I have a very dear friend that has a very similar story to yours, minus the trauma. And I'm trying to, he gets those moments, and I'm sure you've gone through it, where you get those moments where you're motivated and you're going to conquer the world. And the next minute you're like, what am I even doing?
Yeah.
And so I try to continually motivate this guy. Like, today is just another day. You have to get up and you've got to figure out how you're going to be better today than you were yesterday. Because I go back to, there's enough mediocre people in the world. We don't need more of them. We got to have people that are willing to rise up and lead for the greater of the good.
100%.
And that's what you're doing. You're doing exactly that.
I mean, like, I could have accepted the one thing is, like, with DAPTA, I don't accept the injury. I'm gonna keep going, keep doing everything possible to where I can do it, to where I can get out of this chair, which is what I do. Like, and on top of it, I do this podcast because I want to, like, motivate people out there and tell them, like, hey, like, if you're having a problem, like, you know, like, dude, like, you can go outside and have you can go outside and literally take a breath. Like, I can't. Like, I can't do that. I miss that so much. So sometimes I, like, say, like, saying, like, take a breath for me. Because literally that's what you can do. I did not know that it is a privilege to be able to breathe and not write. I did not know that until this happened. So you learn from the mistakes and then you get through it. And talking to you today, man, I mean, like, I guess that's the theme of this podcast. Is that, like, we learned through our mistakes, and that's how we, like, you know, prevailed and, you know, persevered, got through it. And it's just it's been amazing talking to you, Chris Blair.
Yeah.
Chris Blair, it's been amazing talking to you, and I'm happy you were able to make some time to come out here. I know you got a busy schedule, and you got any last words for anybody out there?
Yeah, for you. You had made a comment earlier about you've been thinking about going to school. When do you stop thinking and start doing? All gas, no brakes, Max.
All gas, no brakes.
All gas, no brakes, baby. That's all I got to say, man.
All right, man. If you guys liked this video, please subscribe. Turn that red button into gray. You'll love it. We're gonna keep pushing out vlogs, and we're gonna keep pushing out podcasts. And I'm paralyzed from the neck down, breathing through a machine, but that doesn't stop me from following my dreams and doing what I love to do. I don't got an excuse, and neither should you. We'll see y'all in the next one.
Simpler times, spent with simpler minds. Probably thought about them damn near a million times, but that was back before I had like a billion rhymes. I guess that life's still good, it's just a different vibe. Just a couple of punks, all trying to get by. Just a couple of teens, all trying to survive. Live to the max, cause you don't live it twice. Couple green thumbs.